Well, once upon a time, a long time ago in a faraway land, there was an enormous big castle. And in the castle lived a very nice king and queen. And one spring, about this time of year, they had a baby. And it was a baby girl. And the king said, "What are we going to name her?" And the queen said, "We're going to call her Catherine, but we'll call her Kate until she's grown up." And so Kate was a cute little baby, gurgling and smiling and and very happy. Well, after a while, the queen noticed that when she leaned over the crib and moved her head from one side to the other, the baby's eyes did not follow her. And then she put a hand out and waved it from one side to the other, and the baby's eyes did not follow the hand. And they realized that Kate was blind. Well, they decided to raise her just like a normal kid anyway. And when she was 2 and 3 years old, they held her hand and walked her around the castle. But by the time she was 6 and 7 years old, she could zoom all over the castle really, really fast. She knew where every doorway was. She knew where every hallway was. And there were lots of hallways in this big castle. And she knew where all the furniture was. And she could run with her hand just out touching the wall. She could run really fast. And she knew when a piece of furniture was coming up. And she was really, really good about getting around the castle. And she played with other kids in the castle. They played. Now, she couldn't play tag because she couldn't see. But hide and go seek, ooh, she was really good at it because she knew where every hiding place was. And she used her nose and her ears very um, well. And when you're blind, other senses, you use them a lot. So you sniff a lot, you can smell stuff, and you can hear really, really well. Well, what she found out was when it was her turn to be it, hiding, she was it, she'd go around very, very quietly. And usually, after a while, one of the kids hiding would whisper, and she could hear it. She'd, she'd hear them whisper, and she'd find them. They couldn't always find her so easily, but she could find them in time because they'd forget to be quiet. They'd make a little noise, they whatever, and she'd find them. And she never told them how she found them. Well, when she was 8 years old, one day, her dad, the king, said, "All right, Kate, come on, let's go down to the front door." And so they went down to the front door, and inside the front door on either side were two big soldiers. And they had armor on and swords and big spears, and they were guards for the castle. And she said hello to them because they knew her. And the king opened the door, and they went out and started to go down some steps. And outside of the front of the castle was a big area of, it's called a courtyard, a big area of flat rocks fitted together to make kind of like a pavement. And as she started down the steps, she heard on the pavement click, 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 swish, swish. And she said, "Dad, what's that?" He said, "Well, walk down to the bottom of the stairs and hold your hand out." She walked down to the bottom of the stairs and held her hand out, and she felt something furry. She said, "Dad, what is this? What is this?" She ran her hand one way and then the other, and she heard click, click, and he said, "It's a horse." She said, "A horse, a horse," and she felt all around. She could feel the horse's neck. It wasn't a huge horse. She felt his neck, and then she could felt back along to his back legs, and the swish. She said, "The swish is his tail." swished its tail right in her face. And Dad said, I thought you might like a horse. Now I've got one of the knights, which are the soldiers, to guide you, but I thought you might like to ride. And he boosted her up into a saddle, and she grabbed some reins, even though the horse was being led. She grabbed some reins and started walking around led by the knight on another horse, walking around the courtyard. Well, she loved it, and she rode every day. And they rode on the courtyard, and they rode in some corrals out by the stables, still inside the castle walls. And one day she said to the knight who was leading her, do you think we could go outside the castle? And the knight said, well, let's ask your dad. So they found the king and asked him, and he said, yes, I'll send some extra soldiers out to guard, but there's some really, really good paths and trails in the forest outside the castle. You'd have a lot of fun. So from then on, they rode outside the castle every day. And she loved to go fast. And the knight would start off pretty fast, leading Bumblebee. That was the name of her horse. Her horse was yellow with a white tail and a white mane, and she named him Bumblebee. And the knight would lead Bumblebee, and they'd go fast down these trails and come back. And she was always asked the knight, now is Bumblebee too tired? And he'd say, no, Bumblebee's strong, it's okay. And she loved riding. Well, one night in the summer, when she was just turning 8, a bad king with an army attacked the castle. He wanted to take all her father's gold and all his land. And there was a huge battle, and it went on and on, day after day. And the bad king's soldiers had catapults, and they would throw big, huge boulders over the walls of the castle and crash into the castle and crash onto the ground. And Kate was not allowed to go outside because it was too dangerous for these, because she couldn't see. It was too dangerous, these boulders coming on. The battle went on and on and on. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And finally, in the 3rd week, one night, Kate is sleeping, and she hears a voice, Kate, wake up, it's time to get up. She said, who's that? And the voice said, it's a friend. And she said, why should I get up? And the voice said, I have something for you to do. And Kate said, okay. And the voice said, hurry, get up and get dressed. And then let's go down to the front door. And Kate said, okay. I can't go out the front door. The guards won't let me out the front door. And the voice said, it's okay. You just come on. And this time the voice was right about there, beside her ear. And so Kate got dressed and ran down the hall, down the stairs to the front door. She got to the front door and she heard from either side of the front door. And she said, that sounds like the guards are snoring. And the little voice said, yeah, they're snoring. I put them to sleep. They'll snore for a while. They're going to wake up in about 5 minutes. But while they're sleeping, we're going outside. And Kate said, okay. So she pushed the door open and went out on the steps. Soon as she got on the steps, she heard swish, swish, click, click. She said, is that Bumblebee? That sounds just like Bumblebee. Is that Bumblebee down there? Can I go ride Bumblebee? And the voice said, well, it's not exactly Bumblebee, but it's a horse. And Kate said, okay. Went down the steps and felt the horse, felt the fur of the horse. And the voice said, again, right by her ear, the voice said, now reach up and grab the mane of that horse and pull yourself up on the back of the horse. So Kate did. And Kate said, well, what do I do now? And the voice was right by her ear. Said, well, just hang on. We've got work to do. And Kate felt the horse move forward. Click, click, click. And then all of a sudden the clicking stopped. No more clicking. But she could kind of feel air moving in her face. And she said, how come I'm not hearing any clicking? And the little voice right beside her said, it's okay. It's okay. It's almost, the sun's just starting to come up. We've got work to do. And so Kate felt the horse moving under her, and it kind of went, she kind of felt like the horse was rising, was going up, but she couldn't hear any sound of hoofs. And they went straight ahead, and she could feel a breeze around her face. And then she heard voices. What's that? What's that coming? What's that? Watch out! Watch out! Get out of the way! Watch out! What's that coming? And she said, what's going on? And the voice in her ear said, don't worry, don't worry. And then she kind of felt a sort of like a bump. And then a real angry voice saying, you put me down, you let me down, you hear me, you can't do this to me, you put me down, you put me down. Screaming and yelling, a big man's voice, screaming and yelling. And other voices yelling, get him, get him, get him, he's got the king, get him. And this voice yelling, you put me down, you hear me, you put me down. And Kate felt the horse turn, sort of turning. She couldn't hear any hoofbeats. Felt the horse turning and going along. And then she heard laughing. Oh, look at that. That's the funniest thing I ever saw. And this voice screaming in front of her. Put me down. You put me down. You hear me? And laughing and carrying on. And then all of a sudden she heard click, click, click. And a lot more laughing. And then her father's voice. Well, I see, Kate, that you have brought me back a prize. You have brought me back the enemy king. You can put him down now. And she heard more laughing, and she said, Dad, what's going on? And her father's voice said, of course, you can't see. Well, you are sitting on the back of a rather beautiful black unicorn with wings. And the unicorn just flew over the castle wall, and on his horn, with the horn stuck through the back of the king's clothes, is hanging the enemy king who's been attacking us. And he's on the ground now. My soldiers have him, and we will keep him until his army goes home. And then we'll let him go. And she could hear all her father's soldiers cheering and laughing and carrying on. And she heard this voice, you let me go, you let me go. You can't do this to me, you let me go. And the king said, oh yes. Her father said, oh yes, we can do that. And you're going to stay right here until all your army goes home. You don't bother us anymore. And her father said, you might want to slide off the horse, Kate. And so Kate slid off the horse onto the courtyard. And he said, up. The dad said, up. The unicorn's flying up. It's gone. It's disappeared. And Kate said, "It disappeared?" And then in her ear she heard, "Good job. Goodbye." And she heard her dad go, "Wow, what was that?" And she said, "What, Dad? What?" And he said, "A streak of light just shot away from beside your ear and flew up into the sky and disappeared." And that is the end of the story. Did you like it? What was your favorite part? Do you think you could use your crayons or your words to describe your favorite part? And what do you think the streak of light was? All right, we'll see you the next time.